Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and today we're going to discuss on remaining social protection in the fifth industrial revolutions. We have our world famous speaker, Professor Rob Enderle. Professor Rob Enderle, what you want to discuss about today's session?
So social protection. When I think of social protection, I think of the protections afforded an individual that helps them make proper decisions, associate with people that will help them as opposed to hurt them, uh, kind of help them form a foundation for life. Because we're not really talking about government protections here. We're talking about how the community protects the individuals within it. And you do have constructs, religious constructs that provide protections. Various churches and communities with a singular interest or a similar interest. And certainly when I was growing up, my social protections I think mostly came from my grandmother, who was pretty outspoken about who I should be seen with, and that my behavior should represent the more positive aspects of my young life, as opposed to creating trouble and causing problems, which a lot of kids do, and I was no different. And so in the end, I would argue that for a lot of us, the social protections that are in place were inadequate even before we had the internet, let alone now as we move into artificial intelligence. The parents don't really have the time to spend with their kids. Often two-income households, both parents are absent when the child is growing up. And as adults, young adults tend not to listen to their parents, so that construct is weakened or broken. And their friendships, unless of course they have a heavy religious or some other type of organizational group that helps guide them, say a church group or a school group, a lot of things that we get in high school that helps form our relationships. The focus on assuring that we're well-rounded and well protected is pretty light. It has been, and now we've got a series of fairly significant threats with deep fake capability able to convince us that people are what they are not. The ability for an individual or group of people to convince us to do things that aren't in our best interest are significant. And so as we look at moving into the fifth industrial revolution, some aspect of the technology would need to be focused on helping us be better people, from our own perspective, not necessarily from somebody else's. And so the end result is part of the effort, which of course doesn't really exist yet, should be to define who it is we want to be, so that, or at least help us come to that particular conclusion when we're young, so we have a goal to work towards. I think right now, and certainly when I was young, it was pretty haphazard. You could get in with the wrong group of people, and it would just, it might be the nature of the school or class you were in, but there was no rigor in terms of assuring a proper outcome outside of religious communities and some smaller organizational and political groups, which in many cases weren't necessarily in the best interest of the people that was within them. So with artificial intelligence, you could create an autonomous assistant, a digital aid, if you will, that could, with your guidance as an individual, maybe your parents' guidance initially, help you construct the kind of person that you would want to be, and then give you guidance through it. There was I believe it still exists. There was this financial institution a few years back had this concept that they advertised about keeping on the proper line, and if you worked with them, they would give you guidance that would assure that you would have a well-funded retirement when you retired, and not a bad idea. The ad showed an individual walking a particular line that the financial institution was providing them in order to build that future life that they wanted. And through all the interim steps, getting married, having kids, getting a house, making sure that your financial well-being was well crafted. But we really never had this idea of being able to have that same kind of rigor, and not everybody used that financial institution, but have that same kind of rigor with regard to our personal life, our associations, and even our political affiliations. We're all different, and our skills and capabilities are different. So, in the fifth industrial revolution, one of the things that's going to need to occur is some type of guidance that will help us achieve what it is we want to achieve and help us become the people that we want to become. And there's a real risk, as we discussed yesterday, that as we develop this fifth industrial revolution, a lot of the jobs, I would say the majority of jobs that are out there, are going to be done by AIs and robots. And so finding a place where you can work, let alone want to work, is going to be increasingly difficult. So having that guidance would be extremely critical for our future selves and for our offspring, who will need that guidance to help them navigate through this wealth of information and problems going forward.
Mhm. Thank you. My next question is about UBI. So, how can universal basic income be effectively implemented to address the challenge of displacement in the fifth industrial revolution?
Well, the basis idea of UBI, which may be a requirement. I mean, as we move to a time when the majority of jobs are done by machines, there's going to be a lot of unemployment, and a lot of unemployed broke people are problematic, and we're certainly seeing it in small scale with regard to homelessness globally. Here in the United States, homelessness has become almost a pandemic level problem in some places like Portland, major portions of California, and portions of New York and other states. So in fact, we're passing laws here to make it illegal to camp in public areas, which are what the citizens want, are probably going to create even bigger problems long term if people have no place to go and sleep. So UBI is a way to address that issue. Give people a minimum income that they can live off of, so they can have a home, they can get off the streets, and they can consume, because that it is that consumption that keeps industry going. It's one of the major problems we'll be looking at as we move into a much more rigorous industrial age, with robots and artificial intelligence is doing most of the jobs, is who's going to consume the goods that these companies, these highly automated companies, are producing. If people don't have jobs and don't have incomes, they're not going to be buying anything. And so the economy will come to a crashing halt, because robots and AIs don't consume, they consume electricity, but really don't consume much else. And maybe replacement parts, but they're not going to be buying cars, and they're not going to be buying homes. So UBI creates a way to keep an economy moving as we transition to this much more heavily automated future. The issue with UBI, though, is what the money is going to be spent on. We've certainly seen that when you take somebody and you give them a basic income, they don't have to work, don't want to work. They have to fill their time with something. And now some people will fill their time with reading and research and creativity and artistic types of endeavors. But a lot of folks just kind of lose themselves. They get into drugs. They get into doing dangerous things, just to kind of fill out their lives. And the end result is you get a population that would go into decline. And so UBI needs to be constructed so that the money is funneled into productive things for the individual that's on universal basic income, that enhances their health, that makes them into better citizens, and not makes them into bigger problems for society to deal with. Because we recognize that probably law enforcement is going to be automated here pretty quick as well. So that, because we're understaffed on law enforcement, we're already putting here in the United States, we're already putting robots into law enforcement, though they're mostly robotic dogs, not robotic people at this point. But the others, it's coming. It's just a matter of when, not if. And so in the end, UBI would need to be constructed in a way that would better assure a positive outcome for the individual than current social programs do, because we've certainly seen with food stamp programs and programs that provide income to people that are unemployed and for long periods of time, that those people tend to drift into becoming problematic for society. They drift into theft, drift into drug use, drift into illicit drug sales, and the end result is significant additional problems for society that society is funding. And so UBI needs to be done in a way so that it mitigates the problems, as opposed to creating a whole set of new problems that society would then have to deal with.
Uh, Thank you. My next questions to you. Uh, what role do portable benefit play in ensuring social protection for workers in the gig economy and remote work environment?
So what do you mean by portable benefits?
Portable benefits like different kind of benefits for employee, for social benefits like insurance, like
So you just mean benefits.
healthcare.
The portable doesn't really play here. So what role do benefits play in ensuring the social? Right now, not much. The benefits tend to cover the employee while they're employed. Once they're no longer employed, they no longer get the benefits. That wasn't always the case. When I first came into the technology industry, we had pensions which extended beyond the your employment, and you could qualify for a portion of that pension at 10 years, and that would provide you with a certain amount of coverage in retirement. That was shifted to individual investment plans, where the company now takes no interest after you leave the company. In fact, even if you're in a stock program right now, chances are you'll be asked to divest yourself of the stock you acquired while you were an employee once you leave the company. That's not universal, but it's common. And so right now, benefits rarely extend beyond your employment with a firm, and so if we're talking about a future where most people are unemployed, then most people won't have those benefits, and that those constructs will have to be made up by government, or the people will be effectively homeless and without medical benefits. So they will rely on whatever public benefits exist for their health and well-being. I was just watching a story last night about a woman that's in her third pregnancy that's homeless, and she's a fentanyl addict, and the problems of trying. It's in Portland, go figure. But the support organizations are just trying to figure out what to do with her, because she keeps getting pregnant, keeps having kids. She's addicted to fentanyl. She's never going to not be homeless, unless they can deal with some of her underlying issues, and with a fentanyl addiction, turning her into a productive member of society is going to be incredibly difficult. So this idea of company benefits filling the gap, right now we don't have it, and there's no trend in that direction at the moment.
Mhm. Thank you. My next questions: what are the key principles of flexicurity approach to social protections, and how can they be applied to promote both economic dimension and social stability?
Wow, that's quite a leave that up for a second. Don't take it down. The flex security, I'm assuming, means a security level that is flexible enough to address unanticipated problems you may have in the future. It certainly sounds like an interesting concept. I don't know of it in practice, but creating a construct, probably a government funded construct that would address the individual's needs over time could be incredibly beneficial. But let's take an example of healthcare. We just had an issue here where a drug that's typically used for diabetics, that's proven effective at weight loss, is being pulled from government funded, either state or federal funded health programs, because it costs about $1,000 to $1,200 a month to use, and it's blowing out the budgets. And so these folks are saying, well, you can't use it for weight loss anymore. If you're a diabetic and you need it to stay alive, we'll cover it. But if you're just using it for weight loss, we're not going to cover it. Now, recognizing that if these people, if they don't use it for weight loss, they'll become diabetic, appears to not be the issue. It's the issue is keeping the cost down. And so some type of flexicurity, a program that covered people, probably has to have at its core methodologies to help keep the people healthier. And also have a requirement that the pharmaceutical suppliers don't gouge the program. The state that was the last to pull the drug. It wasn't Ozempic, but it was something similar. The pull the drug they from support pointed out that same drug in Germany, where it is produced, costs less than a third of what was charged in the United States, and at that lower cost they could afford it, but at 3 times the cost they cannot, which showcases that Germany is doing a better job than the U.S. U.S. is in terms of keeping medical costs low. And part of the program would have to be that you have to drive the medical costs down to where the government can't afford to supply them. And again, that'll be done through automation. As you begin to replace nurses, doctors, and the staffing in medical facilities with automated capabilities, then you can drive a lot of the cost out of the program. But the drug cost still becomes a major issue to address, and that may require that the drug companies at some point become nationalized in order to keep the drug costs down and affordable by those same entities. Because there does seem to be excessive profit taking by the pharmaceutical companies. Now they justify that because a lot of money goes into R&D and helps create some of these drugs, but if it was going into R&D that aggressively, their profits wouldn't be as high. So it does look, at least from the outside, that the pharmaceutical companies are taking advantage of situations, and that means it's probably going to eventually lead to some level of nationalization of the drug industry, because governments tend not to, as more governments get involved in healthcare services, tend not to be taken advantage of by their suppliers, and pharmaceutical companies aren't quite as well connected as some of the other industries. So it is, at least is my view, that on the path they're on, if they don't change course, many of the pharmaceutical companies are going to be nationalized as a result, and that will help address this problem. Go ahead and put up the next question.
Thank you, Professor. My next question: how can public-private partnership contribute to the development of innovation solution for addressing the social implications of AI and automation in the fifth industrial revolution?
Well, I think first there needs to be kind of a focus on this. The governments tend to be a bit closer to the people, and their mission, if you will, is to help the care and feeding of their citizens. That's their underlying goal. And on the other hand, companies want to protect and serve their customers, and together the two groups can potentially find a path outside of the company's social responsibility programs to help focus companies a bit more on products and efforts that help society, as opposed to simply just focusing on profits. And so these partnerships can help provide guidance, assuming they're well staffed and remain focused. Because a lot of times, both with companies and governments, we have issues of graft and misbehavior, and so certainly assurances need to be put in place that neither side corrupts the other. But assuming those protections are in place, then working together, companies can come up with products that are potentially more successful and more helpful to the population at large, and underfunded government organizations can then help fill that funding gap through the company efforts that are profit-based. And so there is a potential mechanism to combine the two entities together to create a greater whole. There have been some efforts in this. Cisco, certainly, they've got a major program that goes into countries and helps those countries deploy advanced technologies for the benefit of their citizens. It's been moderately successful, but they're unique in their efforts. And so it would be nice if more companies did that. And I think it's going to require a fairly significant amount of government outreach in exchange for maybe less regulation and more favorable treatment. You could create a construct that got companies more involved in taking care of populations, taking care of the citizens that are around them. And using Cisco as an example again, they have aggressively attempted to address homelessness around where their offices are created, and to engage their employees in social programs that help their community. Again, they're not unique in this, but they're by no means the majority. And certainly raising those kinds of efforts up as being appreciated and beneficial to Cisco could cause other companies to follow Cisco's lead, and we'd get companies behaving much more beneficially than they currently are.
Thank you, Professor. What's your closing remarks for today's sessions and how you advise emerging economy to develop a good strategy for fifth industrial revolution?
So much like we were talking yesterday, you first have to create a fairly solid concept of what you want your country to look like, your citizens to look like post AI. Right now, the path they're on, or most of the citizens are going to be unemployed, unemployable, and homeless. That's problematic, and so you've got to come up with. You don't want that. So that how do you construct a path to get where you do want to be, where your citizens are relatively content, they're productive, that they are socially engaged, they're happy. I mean, what really amazes me right now is how the Scandinavian companies, and particularly Finland, ranks to the top in terms of citizen happiness and contentment, given where they're located, where you think this would. It's cold there, and you would think people would be moderately unhappy just because of something Finland has no control over, which is the weather, and their proximity to Russia, which has to be problematic. Yet they've got the happiest citizens. That's because their government's doing the job. And I would argue anybody that falls significantly below Finland, you could argue the government isn't doing their job, and so getting governments to focus on what their job should be, which is creating a population that's happy to be there and enjoys living in the country and is supportive of what the government's doing. That's all very important without going to war with anybody. That's a future that's very possible here, but only if we construct it now. If we wait till the wheels come off the rails and unemployment becomes an unsolvable problem because of its magnitude, we're going to have significant upheaval, wars, civil unrest, revolutions, and those tend to be problematic at best, particularly in a nuclear age. And so, finding a way to get where Finland is should be the plan for every government, taking into account the level of automation and unemployment we will otherwise have if that plan isn't in place. So, the first step is to really create a construct of what you want the country to look at post AI, and then building a plan to get there. But until you have a goal, you're not going to reach it. I think Yogi Berra, who was a famous coach, said, if you don't know where you're going, you're probably not going to get there. That's the problem we've got now is most governments don't know where they're going. And that means the outcome's going to be really dire. And so the first step is these governments have to figure out where they want to be, and then they can build a plan to get there.
Thank you, Professor Rob Enderle. I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session.